All right, so good evening. Welcome to class. Again, I apologize for having to cancel at the last minute last night. Thank you for your understanding. I am recording this session for those who cannot attend. And starting next week, we will go back to Monday night at 7 o'clock. So again, I apologize. I am going to go ahead and share my screen in a minute. I just wanted to congratulate everyone on your work so far. You guys have all done a wonderful job. Everyone has done an outstanding job, and very, very excited by the work that all of you have submitted thus far. It's obvious that you guys are getting out of the course what you're supposed to, and everything that I've read would lead me to believe you're going to be fine administrators and continue to progress in your journey. So welcome everyone. Again, next week we will move back to Monday night, and I apologize for the inconvenience of last night and the short notice. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. If you would be so kind as to let me know that you can see it. Give me 1 second. I want to make sure that you can't see anything else that you should not see. So here we go. All right, can you see my screen? You can give me a thumbs up in the chat box. Just say yes. All right, very good. All right, so here we go. So the role of induction in PLCs is the topic of this week. And when it comes to HR and the ability for us as HR professionals to invest in the lives of our colleagues, it's very, very critical. It's important, and to make that investment to help our colleagues grow. So it's very, very essential and critical. So I'm going to quickly trace my journey. Excuse me. So in 1998, when I started my career, it was right before No Child Left Behind. No Child Left Behind didn't kick into gear until like the early part of the next decade, the next millennia, right? So I had no written curriculum. There were no standards. I was at a private school, so we did not have PSSAs to worry about. But that being said, we did have standardized tests to worry about. And the world of education looked a little different and a lot freer. So I had no written curriculum. I had a scope and sequence. I was assigned a mentor. We would have weekly check-ins. He would remind me that I need to be grading and keep up with my grading and make sure work is submitted. That when work is submitted, I would return it to my students by the end of the week. He reminded me when progress reports were, and he reminded me that parent-teacher conferences were upcoming. He never really modeled what the school wanted. He just told me about it. And that was pretty much the extent of my mentoring. We did not document any meetings. We didn't have a binder. We didn't have any of that. So 2005, I went to the second school in my career. And when I got there, there was a big binder. It was huge. I remember that pretty distinctly. And we would have monthly induction meetings. And because I had 7 years of experience, I never really was a part of the induction program as an inductee. I was a mentor because I had experience. And as all of you know, when you're in a charter school setting and you have experience, you're an expert, right? Especially when it's a startup school. So I was one of the resident experts, and so no one really, there was no formal way of pouring into me. I was pouring into other people, which actually was good from an experiential standpoint. 2011, I changed jobs and went to Edison, and outside of my current job, which has the best PD of any place I've ever been. I'll get into that in a minute. Edison Learning had outstanding professional development. They had 5 strands of professional development. They had a director for each strand of professional development. The person who was in charge of PLC's professional learning and curriculum was actually from Great Britain. And in the 3rd week of November, right before Thanksgiving, everybody assembled, congregated at something called ELDA, Edison Leadership Development. I don't know what the A stood for. But anyway, it was the Edison Leadership Development Program. And we were in Laguna Beach, and it was awesome. And they brought in 2 other people, one from Smarter Balanced, who helped to write the Common Core standards. So we had outstanding PD by incredibly professional people. The one was the former Chancellor of Education for the state of Florida, and the other person was like the Chancellor of Education for one of the states up in New England. So these 2 people were gurus, and I cited both of them in my dissertation. So they were like top notch. Then I went to another charter school into a central office position. There was no induction. I got a crash course in the organization from a historical perspective, and that was about it. Then in 2014, I became executive director of a private school, and there was no real induction there. And then in 2016, I went to another school, and in that other school, we had induction. And as the senior principal, I was responsible for pairing everyone up with a mentor and making sure that all documentation was submitted for PDE. So that was my role. I paired people up, and I helped to make sure that the person who oversaw mentoring and induction was doing his job. And then in 2017, I came to the Chester County IU. Now, keep in mind, at that point, I have now been an administrator for over a decade. And when you come to the Chester County IU, you have a 2-year process of formal induction. We have PLCs, and we have continuing leadership development for everyone. So it's very, very important. It is very, very important at the Chester County IU for people to take part and be a part of induction. So the next slide will speak to why that is so critically important. So what happens when you have professional development that is meaningful and purposeful? Number one, people know that they are invested in, and so they stay in the organization. That is very, very critical. Secondly, there's an increased clarity of roles. So we have some highly talented administrators here at the IU. And even though we are all highly talented and very well experienced, we all go through 2 years of induction. And there's clarity of role, there's clarity of organizational culture, there's clarity of policies, there's clarity of procedure, there's clarity on the expectations that are universal here at the IU. And because we all are held to the same standards and there's great clarity in terms of what all that means, there's very little ambiguity. So, for example, like one of the first months that I worked here at the IU, we had professional development for new administrators into the IU, and the business office would come in and talk about the business practices of the IU and how we carry out a budget here, how we review a budget. So everybody gets the same training. And then HR talks about progressive discipline and investing in people. So HR teaches us how to do that. And then in an ongoing methodology, we are all part of PLCs and we are all part of ongoing professional development. So professional development, everyone in the organization is a part of it. And it is very thorough and very rich. And it ties into PLCs. So here at the IU, we always have quality materials. So we always have contemporary and relevant articles. As a part of the PLC model, we get to invest in the lives of one another, and we participate a lot in action research, both in implementation of new strategies and also in terms of piloting new programming. So part of action research is taking an idea and being able to pilot it and implement it on a small scale, and then to actually practice without fear of repercussion if the practice doesn't go perfectly, right? So for example, if we have a professional development on a new technique or skill or strategy in terms of instruction, like we'll practice one thing and we'll practice that for an entire month. So it's probably the only time in my life where I've been a part of an organization where we talk about implementing something and we actually do it very, very slowly. So you actually like implement things the right way. So all those things are very positive because instead of trying to implement 27 new techniques, we work on one and we practice it. And that makes a world of difference. I will say this from the PLC perspective. When you're organizing a PLC, it is important to understand the impact of negativity and the impact of the naysayer. So there's this old saying that, you know, it's important to keep your friends closer and your enemies closer. So it's important to understand who the naysayers are going to be and to make sure that if they are a part of a PLC, that you make sure that during the times when the PLC meets, that there's not an opportunity to spread negativity. Now that I'm working in a very positive culture, I will tell you that when you're working in a positive environment, you don't have to worry about that stuff because that negativity is not present. And it makes a world of difference. So there's some of the lessons that I've learned from being in a very healthy organization and from being able to actually implement PLCs and action research in a positive way, in a methodical way, and to make sure that people have the opportunity to practice new strategies and techniques without the fear of failure. So all those things are very important. So I'm going to stop sharing at this point and ask some questions. Give me 1 second as I step out of my sharing mode. So give me 1 second. I've stopped sharing on my end, so you probably can't see it anymore, but I got to bring something else up at this point. So give me 1 second. So I'm going to ask some general questions, all directly tied to your assignments this week, which some of you have already started working on. So first of all, I'd like, if you don't mind, if we could go around and just share, if you would be so kind as to just share, like, what kind of induction you have in your organization. So how about if we start with Ryan? We'll go Ryan, Allie, Daphne, Charles, Barb, and then Derek. So let's start with you, Ryan. What kind of professional development do you have in your organization?
All right. So when we hire somebody new, they spend the first day going down to the actual headquarters for what's an all-day training, and then they would transition to the schools either later in that first day or the following day, depending on the length of the training there. Then it's essentially up to the independent school. Now, obviously, if the individual starting in August, we have usually a 2-week pre-service to try to get them up to speed. I work for a cyber school, so we also have to teach them the non-traditional sense that we have in our school and kind of show them what their specific role is. So we have a leadership team that would work with them specifically based on whether or not they're in a classroom or whether or not they're going to be teaching virtually, because we do essentially have a blended model at our school. And we work with them intensively until they're kind of comfortable with that. We show them, we model with them, and just kind of piecemeal everything together until they kind of get their own understanding. And then we continually work with them. And then as far as professional development goes, we have weekly professional development every Wednesday. And then we also, every couple months, have what we refer to as day-to-day, where we have more intensive all-day professional development.
Good. Thank you, Ryan. Allie, how about you?
So my school, oh, I don't know why that looks like that. I don't know why my camera looks like that. We have a 1-year in length induction program. Depending on when you're hired, whether you're hired over the summer or in the winter, you have to do a year in length of induction. And it's pretty straightforward, monthly meetings with the entire school district, all the new teachers. And some of the meetings, your mentors have to be there, some they don't. And then just check-in points that you do with your mentor throughout the year. You observe them so many times, they observe you so many times. But I've been in the induction program, and then I've also done it as a mentor, so I've kind of seen both sides of it. I will say, I know a lot of this chapter is about human resources involvement in it, and at my school, the person who runs the induction program is our head of curriculum. And I do, it's not very consistent. A lot of classes get canceled, or a lot of meetings are canceled, or things get rescheduled because I think he just has too much on his plate. So the induction program is a little bit too much for him. So we have a good induction program in place, but the consistency is a little spotty.
That is not uncommon, Allie. In a couple of my roles, when I've had more of a hand in curriculum, whether that be as a central office administrator or whether that be as a principal, induction and professional development was something else that was thrown on to me. And I didn't really have the time to devote to it. Here at the IU, it's completely different. We actually have the time to focus on it and do it the right way. And we have the resources and time and capacity to invest in it. So that makes a world of difference. Allie, so thank you for sharing. Very good perspectives. Daphne, what's it look like in your setting?
So I just started a new job in December, as I've stated in all my discussion posts. So I'm very new to this school district, but they gave me a very, very big binder, similar to your past experience. And I was assigned a mentor. She teaches the same subject and same grade as me. And we went to our first meeting together with the assistant superintendent and 2 other new teachers and mentors. And she just laid down all the monthly meetings that we would be having and told us about a portfolio that we would have to work on, and it's due at the end of the year. So I don't know too much about it yet, but it is, I feel very supported at this school. My
Good.
last school was a charter, and we did not have an induction program. I actually didn't know what induction was until a month ago. We had like 2 days of new teacher PD in the summer, and that was it.
Yep.
So it's very different.
So Daphne, here's something to keep in mind. Thank you for sharing, by the way. So something that I've always said, when you're in a charter school setting, it is like you're giving birth to a school. So a lot of the things that take place in a school, and by way of tradition and years and practice and policy, are all new and different. And you don't have enough qualified staff around who actually can do these things. Where when you're in a district or an intermediate unit that's been around for 40, 50, 60, 100 years, you're steeped in tradition, and they have the time, space, and resources to develop things in a more appropriate way, and you're not flying by the seat of your pants. So it's kind of like when you're dealing with somebody in their 50s or 60s, right? Most of the time, they're not flying by the seat of their pants. They're calmer, they're more reserved, they're more seasoned. They get rattled by fewer things. They're filled with a lot more experience. But when you're dealing with a brand new charter school, sometimes between years 0 and 15, it gets a little rocky and a little topsy-turvy. And I don't think it's any different dealing with an organization. People are a lot calmer at 16 than they are at 12. And I think sometimes we need to think about that from an educational perspective as well. So thank you for sharing, and I'm glad you're in a more supportive and stable environment at this point.
Thank you.
It's definitely more, I sleep better because I know that my organization might not fly away.
Yes.
With the passage of legislation.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Charles, how about you?
Well, I work in a different kind of a. Can you see me?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, so I work in a different environment, a different setting. Head Start. So that's a lot different from the school district and charter schools. But we do not have an induction program at all. You get hired, and when you get hired, you just go through the whole paperwork signing. You sign the paperwork, and they give you a whole binder, a big old binder, with what you need to be doing in August, September, October, November, December, all the way to the end of the school year in June, and then July, and so on and so forth. What they usually do is they would give somebody to you so you could shadow it. So that, like, basically you shadow for about a week or two, and then you're basically on your own. So that's kind of how we did it at least Newcastle County Head Start program in Delaware.
And Charles, what kind of association do you guys have with the Department of Ed?
Well, in Delaware, as of this year, they are trying to merge it. It wasn't merged at all. The Department of Education is separate, and we're actually affiliated with the Department of Social Services.
Okay.
Human and social services. So we, as of this year, it's still work in progress of trying to merge to be one and be under the Department of Education.
Reason why I asked that, I was in a meeting last week with 2 members of the Department of Education from the state of Delaware. Mm-hmm. So I was just kind of curious what your interactions are with them. Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Barb, how about you?
Okay, can you guys see me?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm here. Okay. So my situation is pretty similar to Allie's with the induction program, and you meet monthly with the other new teachers in the district. You were assigned a mentor. The only thing different that Allie said that's different from our district is that the mentors do not attend any meetings with the mentees, and I could really see the value in that. I think that that's like a great
Yep.
way to kind of keep everybody on the same page. And I was just kind of reflecting, last year I was the mentor for a new teacher, and I think that if I had gone to some meetings with her, my role would have been more clearly understood. There would have just been a little bit more, I think, room for improvement on both of our parts. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yep. So we have a program here at the IU called the Leadership Development Program. So people who are interested in assuming leadership at some point in their career here at the IU are part of this leadership development program. I'm a mentor in the program. And so when we go to meetings, the mentors go and sit with their mentee, and then whatever action research projects we're working on, we work on them together. And so it allows for continuity and the ability to build relationship with people. And I think it's important as a mentor to be there and hear everything that a mentee is hearing. Because it's important to make sure we're all hearing the same messages, right?
Yeah.
But then also when it comes to interpretation, if there are differences in interpretation, we all get to be there and be a part of the conversation. So it's not like we're in silos,
Right.
interpreting things differently in our own little fiefdom, right? Our own little worldview. So that's also very important and healthy for the organization. So thank you for sharing, Barb.
Yep.
I just had a point that I wanted to make. Oh, I remember what I was going to talk about. All right. So some of the articles and videos with this week, if you click on the links, they may or may not work. But if you copy the link and hit paste and go, they will work, I assure you. So one of the videos is by Dr. Bob Marzano. So I always love to be able to tell this story. So one of my professors at Immaculata actually worked for Bob Marzano as a consultant, and she conducted a conference call, arranged a conference call with Bob Marzano. And it was a really, really cool experience. Does anyone know what Dr. Marzano did before he became the educational guru? Anyone? Anyone know anything about the history of the life of Bob Marzano? All right, so Bob Marzano was a monk. True story. Bob Marzano was a monk. He lived in a monastery. Probably one of the most humble guys you could ever meet. In the conference call, he greeted each of us by name. He remembered our names. He interacted with us personally and in a meaningful way, and it was one of the coolest experiences of my career. So I have a lot of respect for him just because he's a cool, down-to-earth guy. Obviously, no longer a monk, right? He's married to a very successful psychologist, and I think he and his wife are both. I think they're doing okay. I don't think they're wanting for anything financially. So really cool guy. So one of the videos on PLCs is by Dr. Marzano, and he is a big proponent for PLCs. Very cool guy, and talks all about the unity that can happen within a PLC. And they're great to do and to conduct action research and to do book studies and article studies with, and then to pilot implementation and new strategies. Excuse me. So great guy and great opportunities. So I would just caution you that as a leader, when creating and incorporating a PLC, that you are somewhat careful in your implementation. You want to make sure you know your people. You don't want to put a negative group of people together and allow them to fester. But again, if you have a positive organization and positive-minded people, you should be okay. So, any questions before we wrap up for tonight? Anything? All right, well, hearing none, we're going to wrap it up for tonight. But thank you for coming, and we will resume next week on Monday night at 7 o'clock. Have a great night, and thank you for your time and coming this evening. If you need help with anything, please, please, please feel free to reach out to me. Take care. Bye-bye.